Alright, let's dive into some big ideas with some weird sounding names. MRS and MRT. They sound super complicated, like something you'd see scrawled on a dusty chalkboard in a forgotten university basement. But honestly, the ideas behind them are things you deal with every single day. Let's start with MRS, which stands for Marginal Rate of Substitution. This is really just a fancy way of asking, how much of one thing are you willing to give up to get a little more of another thing? It's all about your personal preferences, your desires, and what makes you happy. It's the trade-off happening inside your own head, based entirely on your personal feelings and wants. On the other side of the coin, we have MRT, the marginal rate of transformation. This one isn't about what you want, it's about what is possible. The MRT looks at the production side of things and asks, if we want to produce one more unit of this thing, how much of that other thing do we have to stop producing? This is a question about reality, about the limits of our resources, our technology, and our time. Think of it as the menu at the universe's restaurant. It tells you the actual cost of one item in terms of another, not just what you feel like paying. It's the cold, hard fact of production possibilities. So, to put it simply, MRS is the rate of trade-off inside your brain, guided by your happiness. It's your personal exchange rate. For example, how many cups of coffee are you willing to skip this week to afford one movie ticket? That's your MRS. Meanwhile, MRT is the rate of trade-off out in the real world, dictated by the physical constraints of production. For a country it might be, if we want to build one more hospital, how many miles of new roads do we have to give up building? It's the practical, unavoidable choice based on limited resources. These two concepts, one based on subjective desire and the other on objective reality, are like two different languages. The language of the consumer and the language of the producer. The language of personal value and the language of production cost. And as we're about to see, the real magic in economics happens when these two different languages start saying the exact same thing. It's at that point of agreement where we find the sweet spot for an entire economy, a point of maximum efficiency and ideally, maximum well-being for everyone involved. Let's imagine your entire world consists of only two things you can spend your time and money on: eating pizza and playing video games. Awesome, right? Now, let's think about your MRS. Suppose you currently have a lot of pizza and haven't played video games in a while. You'd probably be willing to give up a whole pizza just for 1 hour of gaming. In this case, your MRS is high for video games. You value that next hour of gaming way more than you value that next slice of pizza because you're a little tired of pizza and are craving some digital adventure. Your personal trade-off is heavily skewed towards games. But what happens after you've been playing video games for 10 hours straight and haven't eaten all day? Suddenly the situation is reversed. Your stomach is rumbling and your eyes are tired of the screen. Now, you might be willing to give up an entire hour of gaming for just one single slice of pizza. Your MRS has changed. You now value pizza much more highly than another hour in front of the console. This is a core idea called diminishing marginal utility. The more you have of something, the less you value getting one more of it. Your personal preferences are not static. They change based on what you already have. Now let's switch gears and think about MRT. Imagine a small town that can only produce two things: pizzas and video games. The town has a certain number of workers, a few pizza ovens, and a small factory that assembles game consoles. If everyone is busy making pizzas, the town can produce, say, 100 pizzas a day, but 0 video games. If they want to start making video games, they have to move some workers from the pizzeria to the factory. Maybe moving the first worker means they lose only 5 pizzas, but gain a whole video game. The MRT is 5 pizzas for one game. However, as they move more and more people to the video game factory, the trade-off gets worse. The best pizza makers might be terrible at assembling electronics, so to produce that 10th video game, they might have to move their star pizza chef over to the factory, causing a huge drop in pizza production, say losing 20 pizzas just for that one extra game. The MRT has increased. This is because resources, in this case people, are not equally good at all tasks. The cost of producing more of one thing, in terms of the other thing you lose, almost always goes up. So we have these two separate ideas, The trade-off you're willing to make, Mrs., and the trade-off you have to make, MRT. The holy grail of economic efficiency is found at the exact point where these two things are equal, the point where MRS equals MRT. This is the moment when the rate at which you, the consumer, are willing to substitute one good for another perfectly aligns with the rate at which the society, the producer, can transform one good into another. It's a beautiful equilibrium, like finding the one radio station that plays your favorite song right when you wanted to hear it. Let's go back to our pizza and video games example. Imagine a situation where your personal willingness to trade is different from the production trade-off. Suppose you are willing to give up 3 pizzas for 1 hour of gaming, so your MRS is 3. But the town's factory only has to give up producing 2 pizzas to make that 1 hour of gaming, so the MRT is 2. This is an inefficient situation. Why? Because society can create an hour of gaming at a cost of 2 pizzas, but you value that hour of gaming at a price of 3 pizzas. There's a clear opportunity here to make you happier without a net loss. To fix this mismatch, the economy should produce more of what you value more highly. In our case, the town should shift resources away from making pizzas and start making more video games. As they produce more games and fewer pizzas, 2 things happen. First, your personal stash of games goes up and your pizza pile goes down, so your MRS will decrease. Remember diminishing marginal utility? You'll be less desperate for games and will only be willing to give up, say, 2.5 pizzas for 1. Second, as the town produces more games, the MRT will increase because they have to use less suitable resources. It will soon cost 2.5 pizzas to make a game. This process continues. The economy produces more games, your MRS falls, and the MRT rises, until they meet. The sweet spot is reached when you are willing to give up exactly 2.5 pizzas for a game, and it costs the town exactly 2.5 pizzas to produce that game. At this point, Mrs. equals MRT, which equals 2.5. There are no more easy wins. Any further shift in production would make things worse, because the cost of making another game, the MRT, would be higher than what it's worth to you, the MRS. This is the point of what economists call allocative efficiency. We are making the right mix of stuff. This idea of Mrs. equals MRT isn't just a neat trick for figuring out pizza and video game production. It's a fundamental concept for understanding the entire standard of living of a country. A nation's economy is just a giant version of that small town, trying to decide between producing countless things, more healthcare or better infrastructure, more consumer goods or a stronger military, more investment in green energy, or more funding for education. Each of these is a trade-off with a real production cost, an MRT, and on the other side, the nation's citizens have collective preferences about what they value, an aggregate MRS. When an economy is operating at a point where MRS equals MRT, it means that the country is using its limited resources in the most efficient way possible to satisfy the wants and needs of its people. It is producing the combination of goods and services that provides the highest possible level of collective well-being or utility. This is the peak of the mountain, the best we can do with what we have. If a country is not at this point, it means there's a mismatch. It might be producing too many cars when people desperately need more housing, or investing in projects that nobody really wants. Achieving this balance is, of course, incredibly difficult in the real world. How do we even measure a whole country's collective willingness to substitute? This is where systems like market prices come in. In a perfectly functioning market, the price ratio between 2 goods is supposed to reflect the MRT, the production cost ratio. At the same time, consumers make choices based on those prices, revealing their mistress. When the system works, the market guides production and consumption towards that efficient MRS equals MRT point automatically. But markets can fail, and governments often step in to nudge production towards things like public health and education, which markets might undervalue. Ultimately, understanding the relationship between what we desire and what we can create is the heart of economics. The goal of a healthy economy is to get as close as possible to that magical point where the productive engine of society is creating the exact mix of things that its people value the most. It ensures that we are not wasting our precious finite resources, making things people don't want at the expense of things they desperately need. Striving for SIS equals MRT is, in essence, the ongoing quest to maximize human happiness and build a better, more prosperous world for everyone.